A young mother abducted in broad daylight right in front of her family. Hours later, she's found with 5 gunshot wounds to the head just miles from her home. Police now say the man who pulled the trigger is her twin sister's boyfriend, who had a disturbing motive. We're taking a closer look at the tragic case of Michelle Hampton with retired NYPD detective Tom Smith. I'm Gillespie, and this is Law&Crime News. There are so many things that make the case of Michelle Hampton shocking, from her abduction and murder to the alleged suspect and motive. The case begins around 7 a.m. on Wednesday, November 20th. That's when Michelle was abducted in broad daylight. Armed with a gun, the suspect allegedly forced Michelle into a yellow Ram truck before speeding off. We know all this because Michelle was kidnapped right in front of her twin sister and her 2 nephews. Michelle's twin sister Samantha later told police she recognized one of the suspects right away as her boyfriend, 43-year-old Anwan Mosby. As the getaway truck sped off, Samantha hopped into a vehicle of her own, following the truck from the abduction site in Clayton, Missouri to nearby St. Louis. She only stopped trailing the truck when one of the suspects opened fire back at her car. We later learned her own boyfriend was the one who pulled the trigger. No one was injured in Samantha's vehicle, and she reported the incident to police with a 911 call coming in around 7:30 a.m., less than a half hour after Michelle was first taken. After her abduction, the suspects forced Michelle to visit multiple St. Louis banks to withdraw money. They're caught on security camera video doing this too. You can see Michelle in this image sitting in the backseat of the truck across from that bank teller tube. At one bank, Michelle attempted to withdraw $10,000, but she was only allowed to take out $2,000. At another bank, the teller asked Michelle to come inside to finish up her transaction, but instead, the truck sped away. Meanwhile, Samantha used the Life 360 app to track Michelle's location. She gave that info to police, who went to the location and found the phone, but not Michelle. It wasn't until around 11 o'clock when police finally found Michelle after receiving a call for shots fired on the northwest side of St. Louis. At the scene, police found a .40 caliber shell casing and a bank withdrawal receipt. They also discovered Michelle's body in an alley. She'd been shot 5 times in the head. At this point, the case turned into a murder investigation, with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department's Homicide Division heading the search for a suspect. Hey, if you're out and about running errands, listen up. I have to tell you about this new app, Upside, that gets you cash back on daily essentials. I use it every time I pump my gas because it's so easy and it's free, so why not? All you have to do is get the Upside app and claim an offer for whatever you're buying. So you pay as usual and then simply follow the steps on the app to get paid. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside, or scan the QR code on your screen and use our promo code LCNews to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. The search quickly zeroed in on 43-year-old Anwan Mosby, Samantha's boyfriend. Shortly before Michelle's death, she'd received about $40,000 as part of a settlement from her brother. Samantha told her boyfriend this information right before her sister's abduction, and that became Mosby's motive. Police soon tracked down the yellow Ram truck used in Michelle's abduction, only to find out it had been stolen back in October. They used the AT&T tracker inside this truck to locate it in the garage of an abandoned home. Inside that house, investigators found an empty bank envelope with one of Michelle's withdrawal slips. In the dumpster outside, they collected a hoodie worn by one of the suspects and other items seen in the truck on the surveillance video. Officials tested the hoodie and found Mosby's DNA on it. Police tracked him down, and after a pursuit, he was arrested. At the time, police found a phone and a gun inside his vehicle. Mosby admitted to investigators he planned to kidnap Michelle and force her to withdraw money before letting her go. He also told investigators he was the person who shot at Samantha's vehicle during the car chase. Mosby further revealed he gave Michelle a chance to run before shooting her. Authorities also looked through Mosby's phone and found some conversations with a person listed as Manny. That was later determined to be 36-year-old Emmanuel Suarez, who was a co-conspirator in Michelle's kidnapping. Suarez also tried to run when police tracked him down, but was also eventually arrested. Police say Suarez can be seen in security camera video driving that stolen yellow truck in the days before and after Michelle's murder. Suarez's DNA was also found on some of the items recovered in the dumpster. Both men now face more than 30 charges combined, including first-degree murder, first-degree robbery, and for Mosby, a federal kidnapping charge. Now, there are lots of twists and turns in the case of Michelle Hampton, so we're turning to retired NYPD Detective Tom Smith to make sense of it all. Tom, thank you for coming on with us today.
Thanks for having me again, Sierra.
Now, to me, from the jump, I'm thinking this just stands out like wild because she was kidnapped not only in broad daylight, it's around 7 o'clock in the morning, so the sun is shining, lots of people out and about, but also in front of an audience. This victim was kidnapped in front of her sister. To me, at the very least, that's just brazen.
Yeah, not a lot of planning goes into this, but sometimes we rely on criminals not being the brightest and just jumping into certain situations that scream that it's them and identify themselves. And this is certainly one of them. I mean, he's known to the family. It's in front of her house. He's driving the car that he drives all the time. So it wasn't really a puzzle to put together. It was just a matter of getting them.
So initially, after Michelle is abducted, they take off in this vehicle. Her sister actually follows along in her own vehicle, to see where her sister's going, maybe try to protect her sister. She only stops following after people in that initial car fire back at her. That's pretty wild to me, too. What do you make of all that?
Yeah, that's pretty brazen. Again, knowing they're going to be identified, they know who they are. So to do that is very brazen and dangerous. Uh, what I don't understand is, were 911 calls made during that, and what took place during her following them. That was a little fuzzy of why that took place and how long did that happen, because apparently she did see a couple of the bank transactions before they started shooting at her. So that time frame's a little weird to me, but I'm sure it'll get played out as the investigation continues.
You brought up a good point with the 911 call. I have seen mixed reporting on this, sometimes that the sister calls 911 right away. Other reports say it wasn't till after she was shot at. So either way, we do know at some point she called 911. And I do know that the St. Louis Police Department said that they're going to investigate, make sure that their 911 procedures are completely up to date. Does that make sense to you that the police department would then take a look and make sure, okay, we did everything right, or we could improve for next time?
Oh, 100%. And I'm going to bet on the 911 call wasn't made until after the shots. Because just thinking of police responses, if someone calls and lays this out to them, you're going to have a dozen cops in that area real fast. So I'm going to assume, we don't like to assume, but I'm going to in this, that the 911 calls weren't made until after the shots were fired, because then they didn't know where they were. And that makes more sense that she would have peeled off from following them, being scared for her own safety. And then the police responded trying to locate them. So that does make more sense. And maybe she was trying to, hey, what are they doing? Let me try to take care of this on my own, being that it's my sister and I know them. But then the shots changes that picture dramatically.
Something that you've pointed out throughout all of this is that the sister and likely Michelle knew the person who abducted her. It's her twin sister's boyfriend. Obviously, she's familiar with him. And then when the sister does report all of this to the police, she says, hey, I think my boyfriend was involved in all of this. First of all, that's crazy to me just that it happened. But second of all, does that make things easier in the investigation because they quickly can identify one of the suspects?
Oh, sure. That makes it dramatically different because now you're not trying to identify someone. You know who they are. Now you have who they are, their identity, maybe a photo, the make and model of the car. So that makes the search for them much more easier. The cooperation of her, maybe at first was, hey, maybe it's him, still not believing what's going on and not wanting to get him into trouble, but then kind of realized, I think, the circumstances of what was going on and cooperated.
Now, the sister told police that Michelle had recently come into about $40,000, and apparently she had told her boyfriend that too. Obviously, when this comes time for a trial down the line, we don't need a motive to convict, but to me, this seems like a pretty clear-cut motive that he was hoping to get this $40,000.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It makes, when you have cases like this, you start prepping for trial right away. You don't wait for the trial to start or the grand jury to come back to start your trial prep. You start doing that right away in the investigation. So although, like you said, it doesn't matter with the charges, but the MO of it and the reasoning behind it builds a stronger case of as to why this happened and the circumstances of it for sure.
In addition to that motive, we actually have surveillance video of this vehicle with Michelle and the suspects going around to different ATMs and withdrawing money. They only sped off, apparently, when one of the ATMs, the banking person, said, Michelle, can you actually come inside to finish this transaction? And then they sped off. So to me, obviously, that shows that they were after her money, but also they are on camera there. We have the images now ourselves, and they should have known that banks would have these security camera videos. I mean, are these images ones that police are really going to zero in on?
Oh, no doubt. There's nothing like photos. There's nothing like a video when it comes to proving your case. There's nothing like it. You can have all the eyewitness testimony written down you want, but once jurors or a judge sees video of these actions taking place, that is big for the prosecution.
After we have all of this going to multiple ATMs, unfortunately, we do get a 911 call that shots have been fired. When police get to the scene, they see that Michelle has been killed. She was shot 5 times. To me, that sounds like overkill. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? It's just sad. You're looking at it from the bad guy's point of view. You got what you wanted. Everyone involved knows who you are. Why go to that next step? That's the puzzling part of it, and you don't know why. There's other people, they know the sister was following them, so they know the sister knows who they are, but still take it to the next horrible level of killing her, which does nothing. In the end, and it's just sad and tragic that it took that step.
We've also learned since one of the suspects has been taken into custody, he told investigators initially he let Michelle get out of the car and gave her a chance to run off and then shot her. To me, that really stands out because apparently he wanted to allow her to leave, but then decided to shoot her 5 times. It's kind of conflicting to me.
Well, in my mind, they don't want to do it in the car because now there's DNA evidence and possible more evidence in the car. So I think getting her out of the car is the reasoning for that, and then shooting her outside the car gets everything away from the interior. Still thinking they're going to get away with this, and even thinking down the line of not killing her in the car. It's just sad and it's sick. When you have individuals like this that take it to that level.
You talked about evidence in the car, which is interesting if it was their logic to get her outside so there's no blood or her DNA in the car. But in the vehicle, investigators did eventually find a bank envelope from the ATM showing that they were there. Then, additionally, right by the car in a dumpster, they found a hoodie with the suspect's DNA on it. I mean, that's a lot of pretty clear cut evidence, right?
Yes, it is. And again, a lot of criminals when they think of this, they have a one-dimensional mind. Get the money. That's it. And believing they're really going to get away with it. So they don't take that extra step of realizing what is in the car, video cameras, eyewitness testimony. They don't think that. They get that tunnel vision of just money-driven violence. And that's what this was, and not thinking down the line, which again, police can appreciate, and we sometimes want criminals not to think, so it makes it easier for the case and the prosecution.
Now, this story happened a while back. I actually started covering it last week. And at that time, there had been no arrests, no suspects were publicly named. Then over the weekend, we have these arrests. So I'm wondering why, if police knew right away it's the twin sister's boyfriend, why there wasn't an arrest sooner.
Well, there could be a number of reasons. Maybe they just didn't know where he was, and you don't want to put it out there that you're looking for them. That is never done, unless it gets to a really down the line time frame of not being able to locate someone. You're not going to put out who you're looking for. Maybe they were, surveilling him. It's hard to say. Investigations take their run. and it opens up after a while. And I think that's just what happened with this, with making sure they had the right guy, they knew who he was and where he was located.
Now, this specific defendant, Mosby, he's the boyfriend. He talks to investigators and basically reveals everything. He seemingly almost confesses and says, okay, I was going to let her run, then I shot her. But now he's pleaded not guilty to the charges. So that, again, is kind of conflicting. What are your feelings on all that?
Well, they always plead not guilty because that's what their lawyers tell them to do. You're not going to plead guilty in the very beginning of it. You're going to see what deals can be made, uh, down the line to take a little bit of the sentence off of you. So the not guilty plea is pretty much the norm.
So we have this one suspect who's facing about 20 charges, which is honestly just a laundry list of state charges and then also a federal charge. But in addition, there's a second suspect that has been arrested and faces similar charges too. Do you think that anyone else could potentially be charged, or that investigators are looking for other people who could have been involved?
Oh, sure. Just because, you arrest people and the prosecution starts, the investigation doesn't stop. You're going to continue to uh, interview witnesses and interview people around. And if the two perpetrators want to talk, they're certainly going to be open to a interview as well, and what other information they can provide if anyone else was involved. So the investigation continues for that reason.
Talking about the investigation moving forward, obviously, this is going to move forward in the justice system as we have these charges here. You said the investigation is going to continue. What do you think that would look like? Obviously, police are going to want to get this information over to the prosecution. What exactly would they be looking for?
Well, I mean, nowadays, social media accounts, social media footprints, who else were they talking to? Their communications on their phones, on their computers, just to really narrow down and make sure there wasn't anyone else involved. And as of now, I don't think there is, because the initial reports were the two people in the car or in the truck. But then again, you don't know if there was someone that really actually planned it, and looking at maybe a conspiracy theory or conspiracy charges that may be out there. So their phones, their computers are going to be probably a main focus of the investigation at this point.
I think what the most heartbreaking part of all of this is that it's a completely preventable murder. Michelle woke up that day just thinking it's another day, it's a Wednesday, I'm going to go to work, and all of a sudden she's murdered. The suspects made that choice to kill her, and then I don't think they did a very good job to kind of cover up their tracks. I mean, obviously they're not career criminals here, right? They left a lot of evidence behind.
Yeah, and that goes to show, the criminal mind. They're just thinking of one thing, and that was the money. And then to take it, like I said earlier, to that next level, that was not necessary. Not that any murder is necessary. I don't mean it that way, but this was completely kind of not geared up for this. It's a robbery. You got your money. That's the end of it. But they just chose to uh, take this young girl's life for whatever reason they were thinking at the time, which is sad.
Devastating for Michelle, her family, everyone in the community. But thanks, Tom, for coming on and giving us some insight into the crime leading up to her death.
No, it's my pleasure. Always happy to be here with you.
Anwan Mosby has pleaded not guilty to the charges and is due back in court on January 7th for a preliminary hearing. So far, we haven't heard a plea from Suarez. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Sierra Gillespie.